Learn how to measure angles. We've already learned that there are different kinds of angles, and when we look at an angle, we can usually decide if it's acute, obtuse, or right. But there's a way that we can figure out exactly how big the angle is. And in order to do that, we use a special tool called a protractor. This is a protractor. It allows us to measure how far open or closed an angle is. Now, one of the important things to consider is if the angle is acute, obtuse, or right, and here's why. You might notice here on the protractor that there are two sets of numbers, 10 or 170, 20 or 160, and for every answer except 90, there's two possible answers. So, what do we know about acute, obtuse, and right angles? We know that a right angle is always 90 degrees, and an acute angle is always less than 90, and an obtuse angle is always more than 90. So if we're measuring an angle that looks acute, we're going to choose the smaller number. But if we're measuring an angle that looks bigger than 90 degrees, we're going to use the bigger number. Let's practice. We're going to take a look at this angle, and let's zoom in all the way so that we can see all the numbers really easily. When I look at this angle, it looks close to a right angle to me. I can see that it starts over here. This part of the angle starts over here where 0 is, and I can tell that it counts up as we go to open it. So I'm going to, instead of just guessing what the number is, I'm going to count by these tens all the way up to help me figure out what it is. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, more than 90. So this is going to be an obtuse angle, which means over here I need a bigger number. Now what's a little confusing is that it's not exactly on a line. So I know that this is 90, and this over here would be 100, so it's somewhere in between 90 and 100. This line right here that's halfway, do you know what's halfway between 90 and 100? You're probably thinking 95, and that would be right. But this one is not quite to 95. So I would call this angle 94 degrees. Is it close to 95? Yes, but actually it's 94 degrees. Let's try another one. You might notice that this angle opens up this way to the left, and this angle opens up the other way to the right, and that's okay. We're still going to find the part of the angle that starts at 0, which this time is over here. And again, it looks really close to a 90-degree angle. Let's go ahead and count up by tens. This way the tens are over here. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And it actually goes just a tiny bit past 90. What would you say that the measure of this angle is? If you said 91 degrees, you're right. If you said 92 degrees, that's really close, and I would probably count that right too. But it can't be 90 degrees because it's not exactly on the 90-degree line there. Let's try a third angle. Okay, this angle looks really wide open, so I'm thinking that this angle is obtuse, which means if I were to have to pick a big number or a small number, I'd pick a big number. I'm going to start over here where the angle starts at 0, and I'm going to count up by tens. Instead of counting out loud this time, I'm going to have you count. I'll touch and you count. 100, keep going. 160. We can't go to 170. It didn't make it over there, but it looks like it's exactly in between 160 and 170, right on that middle line. How big do you think this angle is? 165 degrees.